Morning, friends. Ash here, NPNP News. It's November 10th, 2025, and been following the results of news. I've been following what's happening in the world. I'm going through some personal issues right now with my family. It's become very difficult for me to keep doing the show, but I'm doing the best I can with no resources, with no help, with nobody, it appears, really even listening anymore. I'm not sure why my viewership has dropped, but part of the reason for it, I think, was because of YouTube going down, and then the people didn't come back, and I was just starting to get a lot of views on YouTube, way more than I was getting on Rumble. So we've seen my viewership drop. We've seen a lot of other pundits' viewerships apparently drop. People are fed up with bullshit. Not that I'm feeding you bullshit, but I think just people are fed up in general with the story itself, with watching this chaos unfold, the chaos loop that I've been talking about, and that's featured in movies like Captain America, The Winter Soldier. You know, I've been talking with a lot of my friends. I've been a little bit more on social media than I was in the past. I've gotten back on some social media, just a small bit, just to see what's going on and sort of chat with some people I haven't talked to in a long time. And, it's sort of like a malaise on there. I mean, it doesn't seem like it used to be with the amount of information flowing. It doesn't. Some people seem to be waking up more, and then others are sort of less fed up with the whole politics and process and don't want anything to do with it anymore, and they're putting their heads in the sand, But you can't put your heads in the sand in a time like this. You just can't. We see that Trump's pardoned Giuliani and Sidney Powell. Cheesebro and dozens more involved in the 2020 fake electors case. So he's pardoned 77 different people, including Sidney Powell, who I think is connected to Flynn and those people, right? And you remember she was coming out right away with all this stuff, and then all of a sudden she just disappeared, right? You didn't hear anything about her anymore. She was doing lawsuits and this and that, and then all of a sudden she's gone. President Trump granted pardons for 77 individuals tied to a plot to overturn the 2020 presidential election, including his close allies Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and Kenneth Cheesebro, a Justice Department attorney announced late Sunday. The full list of those pardoned, each of the president's co-defendants who faced charges related to the 2020 fake electors plot, was posted to X just before 11 p.m. by Trump's clemency czar, attorney Ed Martin. Martin shared the pardon document in a reply to his May 26, 2025 post that read, "No MAGA left behind." So there's Giuliani's mugshot, there's Sidney Powell's mugshot. Not that they were going to probably do any time for that, but they still wanted to do the pardon, apparently, from Trump. Those given a full, complete, and unconditional pardon were allegedly entangled in a scheme to organize alternate slates of electors from battleground states that former Vice President Joe Biden won, including Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan. It's funny, when I got my YouTube channel back, so you can go look on YouTube for NPNP News, and you can follow us there. I only got about 3 or 4 views on the 2 videos, 7 views on one video that went on YouTube, and then 4 views on the other. So there's almost nobody watching it on YouTube. But maybe that'll change. I had some videos there that got thousands of views, like the one I posted during the 2020 election, where the vote totals were changing right on the screen. This proclamation ends a grave national injustice perpetrated upon the American people following the 2020 presidential election, and continues the process. Yeah, it doesn't seem to me that Giuliani had done anything wrong, or Powell. But I don't trust Powell. That's the problem. And we know Giuliani went over to Ukraine and got all kinds of information from Poroshenko and those people about what really went down, but he never got to present that. I don't know if that information ever got presented to a congressional or Senate body of any kind, or Senate, some kind of investigational board. He never got to share his information. There's Sidney Powell. So what happened? Mamdani ended up winning the New York mayoral race. Here's Mamdani years ago. I like this picture of him. When he was trying to be a rapper. Remember, he's got no shirt on. He's got a little smock. And he was talking all kinds of negative stuff about he hated the police and this and that, right? But what's interesting is if you look at, here's the New York mayoral results from ABC News, right? Zoran Mamdani only got 1 million votes, 1,036,000 to be exact, 51. In a city that has over 8 million people in it, right? Which makes me wonder, how did only 2 million people vote in this thing? Where's the other 6 million or 5 million plus people? Are they just not voting? Nobody's been able to answer that question. Sorry, I'm having some voice problems today. I just noticed it actually when I started trying to talk. My voice is having a lot of trouble. And it's been happening for a long, long time because I've been talking so long on this show for over 5 years now. I'm sort of craving not talking anymore. I wouldn't mind disappearing into a forest somewhere for like a couple of years and not talking, but I wouldn't make it, so I'd starve. So Mamdani wins with 1 million votes. That's the key to this thing that nobody really wants to talk about. In fact, New York's talking about, hey, there's a record turnout. Excuse me. How is it record turnout? It's 1 million people voted for this guy. Record turnout would have been 6 million people turned out. Right? They said he wasn't leading with any religious group except the Muslim group, which is the smallest group voting bloc in the whole city. So how did he win? Well, because somehow 5 or 6 million people never showed up. Or if they did, their votes were thrown in the garbage. So there's only 2 explanations here. Well, there's more than 2, but the 2 that come to mind are, well, somebody's massively throwing out massive amounts of votes, which we saw happen before. Or they just figured out another way to rig it, like with the gem system, where it's just, let's rig it for Mamdani to get 50%. And whatever Cuomo does, he won't get 50. That's all we got to worry about, right? As long as Cuomo gets 40-something% or less, we're as good as gold. That's all we got to do, right? They got Mamdani to 50%. How'd they do that? Well, we skewered the amount of people voting by a huge amount. That's the only way we can do it. The same thing happened with Adams, where it was a similar turnout, like 27, 28%, under 35. That's key. It's got to be under 35% for them to do it. And then they put the ranked choice voting in, which allows them to do more. That was the real scam. They put the ranked choice voting in. Now, on another note, the precious metals note, it looks like gold and silver is going to open up to the upside. Huge. They haven't opened yet. The market opens at 9:30, but gold on the international market's already up $96. I saw it up over $100 to $4,114 an ounce. Silver was up at one point $1.79 but now it's up $1.59 to $50.18. So it did pull back about $5 or $6, but like I said, that's really just a buying opportunity. I'm seeing all these people trying to stoke fear. I saw one show with the title, the gold and silver bullion dealers are closing up shop. They went dark. Well, that's not true. Here's a APMEX, which I showed you. They got silver for sale. You want to get a 10-ounce bar? They got plenty of 10-ounce bars. All of a sudden now they got plenty of silver. Remember all that stuff that was pre-sale? It's not pre-sale anymore. You can get 10-ounce bars. No problem. Here's a 10-ounce bar, 10-ounce bar. Here's a pre-sale. This is pre-sale. But a lot of them aren't anymore. So you could buy 10-ounce bars. They got any 100-ounce bars? Yeah, you can get a 100-ounce bar right now if you want. It's going to run you 5G. That's expensive. That's how much silver's gone up in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. It's more than doubled now, right? So Mamdani wins with 1 million votes somehow. That's all he had. In a city that has over 8 million people in it, that's odd. In a very important election, how is this guy only getting 1 million votes? How come only 2 million people showed up to vote? Is the voter apathy that bad, or is something else happening in New York that we're not being made aware of? Because I can't see how 6 million people can't vote, or they just didn't give a shit. That's the majority of the city just doesn't give a shit anymore, which I find hard to believe. Dave Portnoy destroys Zoran Mamdani after the election when he threatens to move Barstool out of New York. That's the other problem. There's going to be a drain, not just of human minds and people out of New York possibly, but there's going to be people selling their real estate. There's going to be people with maybe large businesses that don't like Mamdani's politics and think they're going to get taxed more. They're just going to leave and go to another state with a more favorable tax scenario for their business, right? Maybe that's Florida, maybe that's Pennsylvania, maybe it's Arizona, but it's not going to be New York anymore. Like I said, you can tax the rich, but the rich are mobile. They can move easily, right? They got a lot of money. If I got 50 million bucks, yeah, I probably got a couple different homes, maybe somewhere in, if I like to ski, maybe I got something in Vail, right? Colorado or whatever. I like to go in the sun. Maybe I got a place in Florida or the Caribbean or whatever. If I got a lot of money, maybe I bought an island, right? Texas bans non-citizens from voting in all local elections after passing constitutional amendment. Proposition 16 passed with 71% support and amends the Texas Constitution to explicitly include persons who are not citizens of the United States among those barred from voting. Well, also those who, how about those who have a fake ID? You're going to have to redo all the IDs to make it almost impossible to fake. And you got to redo the Social Security card and actually make it a real card, or actually get rid of it altogether. I don't know. That's your slave number, so I don't want my slave number anymore. I want to get rid of it. I don't want you pumping money out of my jobs that I do into some account that I have no access to till later. That's bullshit. Right? I don't want money sucked out of my check all through my life. I'll take care of my retirement on my own. Thank you. I don't need you to do it. Right? Some people would prefer that other scenario. I need the extra cash now. I have a family. I need that extra whatever you're taking out, right? And a lot of money gets taken out of your checks for taxes and different crap, right? I remember when I first started working there, I saw the taxes taken out of my little check that was already so small. And I realized, oh my God, I can't live like on this. So Texas did the right thing. But, again, if you got a place like New York where they don't even ask for ID to vote and you just need the last 3 letters of some person's name and the first 3 letters of their first name, well, if you know a dead person's name, then you can vote with it, right? If they give it to you. It's easy to redo IDs for people now. They can remake passports. It's very easy. I was listening to Ari at home, turn up the volume. So Ari, unfortunately, was used by Mamdani to get him elected. He has a big viewership, right? So he got a lot of the young vote. That's really all he got, was the Muslim vote and the young people's vote. You can see that, which was like about 1 million votes, right? But where's all the other people? Did they just throw their votes in the garbage? Why is the turnout so low? The same thing was happening in the presidential elections. If you look back at New York's voter turnout, I think it's about 50% or less. I think only less than 9 million people voted in the 2020 election, which there's about 18 million in the state. So that means that almost half the state doesn't vote. That's a lot of people, right? If millions upon millions upon millions of people in New York are not voting, what does that mean? That they're not registered to vote? They're not American citizens? They're criminals with a felony rap on their record? I don't know. But a lot of people didn't vote, apparently. Or if they did, their votes weren't counted. That's the other part of it, right? What if 4 million people voted, but they just threw those people's votes away? Is that possible? I don't know. Yeah, if you're doing it in a way where nobody gets a receipt of who they voted for. Right? I just put my ballot just goes in a machine. I don't get a receipt. I walk out. I don't know if my vote was actually counted. It says it was. But how do I know that? For a fact that it was. I don't. So somebody needs to look into New York's. There should be an independent board that now looks into New York's the last two elections and tries to figure out where did all the votes go, because something smells really, really bad here in New York about how Mamdani of allegedly won that race. I don't think the voter turnout would be that low in a time when everything's up for grabs, right? You'd think the voter turnout in New York would have been over 50% easy at this point. It didn't even get close. It didn't even get to 30%. Travel mayhem has 17 airports to grind to a halt within hours. So I think what they're doing is, well, we'll see, right? It looks like that the Democrats now have moved. Some Democrats finally caved and they figured we're going to lose everything if we don't stop this soon. Schumer's going off the rails. He's at the end of his political career and usefulness. Just like Pelosi is. You're seeing the big dynasty people all step down, right? Nadler, Schumer, Pelosi, Cocaine Mitch. They're all on the way out, right? From both sides. Which is a good thing for the United States of America. Somali American who said protecting illegal aliens from Trump was top priority loses his bid to become America's wokest mayor. So at least one of those Somali mayor guys lost. But we got one, a Muslim in Mamdani in New York. I saw somebody posting a video that was claiming because Mamdani met with the Jews and certain Jewish rabbis in Brooklyn that he was a crypto Jew or a secret Jew, they call him, right? A crypto Jew, some people call that, right? Yeah, he's really Jewish, but you don't know he's a Jew. And there's people like that who change their names on purpose, right? There was a lot of Hollywood actors that were actually Jewish that you don't realize. Not that that's a bad thing, but they just told them, listen, you're Jewish. You're not going to get any roles if your, name's Arthur Finkelstein or something, right? You better change your name to, I don't know, Cary Grant. How about that, right? Or some other thing. I don't know if Cary Grant was Jewish. I forget. But there's a lot of those guys were. And you didn't know. Because they were told to change their names. Inside Zoran Mamdani's woke celebrity-filled victory party after socialists won New York City mayor. Yeah, I heard the beers were $13 a beer at his victory party, though. Right? No open bar. It was $13 a beer. That might make some people who drink beer like in rural places laugh, right? What? You're paying $13 for what? One beer? I can get a whole case where I live for $13, almost. Well, maybe not now, right? Yeah, some of these bars, you go in there, buy a mixed drink, you're talking about $20 now, plus the tip. Don't forget the tip. Got to tip your bartender, right? Don't call the bartender barkeep. They don't like that, okay? Don't do it. Don't walk in a bar and start being a dick and be like, hey, barkeep, and pound it on the bar. Don't do that, all right? Just don't do it. Be nice to the bartender. They have a hard job. Tip them well and tip them often. And don't give them any shit. NBA gambling scandal could snare more superstar names as suspects begin to turn on each other, federal insiders warn. Yeah, I saw now two other baseball players, it appears, are now are caught up in this, right? That they were being told what pitches they would throw, when they would throw certain pitches. That's a whole other thing. If the other team knows that, hey, if I got a guy on first, the first pitch coming to the next guy's a fastball, well, yeah, I'd like to know that, right? What was that movie with Kevin Costner, right, where he's the baseball player and he's the catcher and he tells the one guy the guy's next pitch and he hits a home run? He's coming with the cheese. He's coming with the high cheese, right? One of my listeners was really upset about, like a lot of people, about Mamdani winning. I get it. But he didn't really win. It was rigged for him to win. Is what you have to understand. That's why only 1 million people voted for the guy out of 8 million. Well, that's not really a win. If it was a mandatory vote, right, where like a robo thing called your house, every phone number in the city, and said, okay, what do you vote for? 1 for Mamdani, 2 for 2 for Cuomo. If everybody had a vote, do you think Mamdani would be the mayor? No, he wouldn't have been close. Cuomo would have won in a landslide, is my guess, if that was the case. And Mamdani probably would have, if it was a 60% or more or 70% turnout, Mamdani comes in third, is my guess on that. But if you segment it to 2 million votes only that can vote, and take 1 million of those and make them only these votes we count, these kids' votes or the young vote, then he wins. There's no way he gets 50% of the whole city voting, is my point. Illegal alien wins mayoral election in major city. So somehow an illegal alien won? How is that possible? Isn't that supposed to be void then? Here's an opinion piece from the New York Post. Let Andrew Cuomo's latest farewell be his last one. Yeah, that should be the end of your political career, but that's not what I'm hearing. He's thinking now of running for a Senate or congressional seat, or running for Nadler's seat, maybe. He's not done. This guy's not done. He just doesn't want to go to bed. He doesn't want to go away into that night, right? He doesn't want to walk off into the sunset, because there's no sunset for him. He'll just be forgotten as a failed political candidate who was a deep state plant. And that's all he'll ever be remembered for. You never will be remembered for even a third of the glory that your father had, and your father didn't have much glory either. I don't think his father was that good of a politician either. You didn't do anything really to help this state. You hurt the state. You were involved in graft. So I was talking about Notorious B.I.G. with Diddy, and the way you could see that some of the interactions between the two of them were a little bit strange. I'll just leave that there. They may have had some kind of relationship. And I'm not judging them if they did. That's fine, but don't try to pretend that you're one thing and then you're another thing, right? Just be who you are, and don't be ashamed of it. And if you can't be who you are and not be ashamed of it, don't be a rapper in the public view then. Just go off and do your thing in private, right? Zoran Mamdani's surprising transition team was all women. One of them is a Biden appointee, I think, at one point. So it doesn't look good. Like he's putting in deep state players already as his transition team, because he's a controlled asset. Parents began planning to take their kids out of New York City schools minutes after Mamdani's win. I'm sure some moving companies got called. I'm sure people are starting to make plans. I'm starting to make plans. A lot of people I know are starting to make plans. DOJ wants ex-Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters moved to a federal custody after Trump's calls for her freedom. How come Trump didn't pardon Tina Peters? Right? Trump nominates former New Mexico Rep. Steve Pierce to lead the Bureau of Land Management. Pierce previously served in the House Natural Resources Committee, which conducted oversight of the Bureau while he was in the lower chamber from 2003 to 2009. And from 2011 to 2019. The Bureau of Land Management is an incredibly important position that needs to be run by an individual who is beyond reproach and beyond bribes and everything else, because it's important that the Bureau of Land Management be run correctly. And it's also important that all that land is really the people's land, and it's not being used for any real resource of any kind, or being used for anything. And maybe it should be. If you realize how much BLM land's out there. So you can follow us on YouTube at NPNP News. Check for us on YouTube now. Try to subscribe if you're on YouTube. I'd appreciate we get some more subscribers. Only got 403 from before. Still only have 403. My Mamdani video got one more view. It's at 5 views. Here's NPNP News. Just look for the white peace flag. That's always us. Check us out on YouTube if you can. Subscribe and click the bell. And whenever I update on YouTube, you'll know right away. Zinc and Ivy writes, big blue cities are quickly becoming box canyons of easier identification and location. Stay frosty, friend. Yeah. Yeah, they got the tall towers already. Those big, those towers that they put up for the 5G, the tall one that goes like 20 feet up, they already are starting to put those in my neighborhood near where I live. They're not right there, but I think that's how they're going to box us in with those 15-foot tall ones every 5-10 blocks. They're going to create a large grid with those. I looked in my community newsletter. They said that they tried to put those closer to where I live, and the people on my particular block said no to it. So luckily we stopped those, some of those taller. And if you're in New York, you need to be very cognizant of those taller ones and talk to your community boards now. And if you have a building committees and a community board, start to make sure that those towers don't get put into your neighborhood, because they are going in. And they're going in by the thousands. They wanted to put 2,000 of those towers up, by the way. The 15-foot high ones. 2,000 of them. So, yeah, they're putting the grid in right now. They're putting the control grid in. And it's already in. I mean, there's cameras everywhere in New York. You can't get away with much here. You see all these crimes that people do, and then 2 days later, what happens? They're arrested. How come? Because they know they follow you until they find your face. Heritage Foundation board member quits over Tucker Carlson defense as think tank prez admits he made the mess. So I think the whole thing about Tucker was, I never trusted Tucker anyway. Remember when Tucker went to visit Julian Assange in prison, and then what happened with that? He never came out with an interview or nothing. Nothing ever came out of that. But why did he go visit Assange? Were they trying to poison Assange in there? I'm assuming so. Somebody said that Assange, in fact, was poisoned by Pamela Anderson a long time ago. But I don't know if that's true. But he was interviewing this guy named Nick, somebody who's a lot of people don't like. Tom McDonald came out with a new song, All My Haters. I don't know what Big Growth was saying. He was doing some kind of spam. Here's an opinion piece, Michael Goodwin. Graceless sore winner, Zoran Mamdani immediately drops his mask and declares war on New York City. Yeah, I didn't like this speech at all. It didn't sound like he was inclusive of any groups in that. In fact, he went to a mosque later and said to the people in the mosque, we've been marginalized too long. He's trying to stir up the Muslim population. Kansas mayor hit with criminal charges for allegedly voting as a non-citizen in several elections. I mean, also, if you go to places like Michigan and look around, some of these cities in Michigan now are doing the call to prayer 5 times a day already. 5 times a day. It starts at 5 a.m. You want the call to prayer starting at 5 a.m. right near your house? And it's loud, right? It wakes your ass up, especially if most people are not getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Most people don't have to get up that early. What if that's near your house? What do? You have people complaining to the board, but the board's filled with Muslims now who have taken over that city, in numbers that they have control of the community boards. They're becoming the mayors. They're taking over the political process. And that was done under Obama. There's parts of Minneapolis that are the same. Kansas mayor hit with criminal charges. He's voting as a non-citizen. How are you the mayor if you're a non-citizen? How are non-citizens becoming the mayors of major towns? That doesn't make any sense. So who's vetting these people? Well, you're giving a bunch of fake IDs out to people. Giving out fake Social Security cards, which is just still a piece of paper. If you can believe it, the Social Security card that you get, still is the same. I mean, I got mine. It's a piece of paper. It's easily forgeable. Paper identification with no ID, with no photo ID, is the easiest form of ID to forge, right? Because there's no picture ID, there's no hologram in it, there's nothing in it to worry about. Oh, there might be a hologram in the newer Social Security cards. I don't know. My old one doesn't have. I mean, it might have a watermark in it of some sort, but it's easily forgeable compared to, say, the driver's license, the passport we have now, right? Which is much more difficult to forge because it has multiple holograms in it. It has a chip in it. Oregon declines criminal investigation into those who illegally voted. At least 1,863 individuals were unlawfully registered to vote under the Oregon Department of Motor Vehicles voter registration system. So right there, you got at least 2,000 people almost that voted illegally, and that's obviously got to be higher, right? Also, 3 more Chinese researchers at University of Michigan were charged over alleged effort to do what? Smuggle biological materials either into the United States or out of it, right? That's the same thing that happened before when COVID first started. Remember? They caught, at the beginning of COVID, they caught this Chinese research guy or whatever at Logan Airport in Boston with the biological materials in a sock. Remember? We talked about that. And there was and there was somebody from Canada as well that was caught. So something was going on where they were taking samples of COVID or something out. Was COVID smuggled out of the United States to China and then released? That's what I'm starting to think they did. But China was working on COVID too. But then why were these Chinese scientists sneaking biological material out of the country for? What was the point of doing that? Is that how they made COVID more lethal? Because they needed the extra, the HIV chimera that they created? I don't know. We know at some point around 2007 and 8 that the Chinese start to create HIV chimeras in an attempt to take SARS-CoV and make it that it could jump species, right? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make something jump species from an animal into a human, which previously to that was not happening, right? James Comey's daughter told Epstein he would walk free if he said Trump was involved with Epstein's crimes. Report Tartaglione added in his petition that Epstein told him, quote, President Trump was not involved in Epstein's crimes. So did somebody tell that to Ghislaine and say, hey, listen, if you say this, then we'll move you to another prison, and eventually when things calm down, like at the end maybe of Trump's term or whatever, or later, you'll get pardoned. Just don't worry about it. Because she's in a prison where she's not allowed to be for the crime that she was sentenced to. She should be in a maximum or a more secure prison, and she's not. Elise Stefanik was soon to announce run for New York governor. She has announced, and she's, I think, going to win. And I think she'd be a good governor. So let's see. Let's hope that there might still be hope. Because if Stefanik wins and defeats Hochul, she could be a check on Mamdani 1. And also she could remove Mamdani. Right? If the governor can remove, at least in the state of New York they can, I think almost every state has the same rule, that the governor can remove the mayor if the mayor is for cause, right? In other words, if the mayor is doing something that's outside of their job, or if it's a criminal act is found. And we already have multiple criminal things that appears that happened that Mamdani's done. He's taken money from foreign assets. He's taken money from Soros or Soros-connected individuals, maybe as much as $40 million. Mamdani promises a new age of relentless improvement where government will solve all problems. This new age will be one of relentless improvement. Sorry, not government. Well, yeah, relentless government, it sounds like. It sounds like a nightmare, because the government has never been able to solve the people's problems. Very rarely. It's usually people who solve the people's problems. They figure it out. They want the government to stay out of the way for the most part and do its job. Like, for instance, if you're going to make a bunch of public housing for people who are of low income, or who are, working poor, whatever you want to call them, right? Lower middle class, people that need help with their housing, that can't afford to pay their rent and food. Well, then you should upkeep that housing over time and not let it degrade to the point where people are living in substandard conditions. Because what Now, what Mamdani's talking about is these buildings that have a lot of fines on them in New York because they have bad landlords who've been allowed not to make the repairs. He's talking about taking the buildings away from some of these people and the city seizing those buildings, which some people would be not all for, especially if you're in that building for years living in substandard conditions, right? Where the walls are caving in, there's mold, there's mice, there's roaches, it's dirty, there's violations that aren't being fixed, there's leaking and water and stuff like that. But if the government is going to come in and have the ability to seize certain buildings, and that who's going to want to own buildings in New York anymore and be a landlord here? Probably not that many, right? Because if you get something goes wrong with your building and you can't fix it right away, the city could come in and take it, right? But there are buildings in the city that have dozens of violations on them that never get fixed for some reason, and doesn't seem to be any way that the city can punish these people except for monetary fines, which some of them don't get paid. South Africa opens probe into young men fighting in the Ukraine war, UPI News. 84% of Gen Z women voted for Mamdani. The only demographic to vote against the socialists was white men. The only racial group that leaned against Mamdani were white New Yorkers, who went 46% for Cuomo and 45% for Mamdani. White men in particular favored Cuomo 49% to 42%. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because we flooded the country, especially your city, with illegal aliens, right? And especially we're flooding the city with people that are not white, for sure, right? That's what we're trying to do. We want to drive the white population out as much as possible because they tend to vote, if they do vote Republican, they tend to vote, it's white men who do it. And there's white men who are going to vote more centrist Democrat, and we don't want them here anymore. So how do we get rid of them? Well, we'll shut your businesses down with COVID. We'll force you out like that one. Right, we'll force your businesses to close. And then what do we do? We'll allow millions of illegal aliens who are non-white to flood into your land and to invade all of the blue cities especially and force you out. And then we're going to give them a way to vote, so they vote for us in perpetuity, and we keep giving them all this stuff, and you're gone. And then we've defeated the real New Yorkers whoever's left, which is a small group. Probably 25% are native New Yorkers left in the city, if that. The rest have left a long time ago. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's 30-40%, but I doubt it. 3 Chinese scholars from the University of Michigan lab were charged in smuggling biological materials into the United States. So they're smuggling stuff into the United States. Are they going to release something? Maybe. Or they were going to try. What was that going to be? Like COVID-24? The new COVID? The more lethal strain you've been trying to find? I don't think so. Allegedly attempting to smuggle biological materials under the guise of research is a serious crime that threatens America's national and agricultural security. Yeah, it's time to remove a lot of Chinese people from this country as well. It's a problem. I mean, you could probably go into the Chinatown here in New York and find at least, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20,000 people that shouldn't be here. That's a lot, just in a small area, right? Imagine how many more are here in other areas where we're having illegal grows show up. We're having Chinese nationals come over the border in Canada into Maine doing illegal marijuana grows. They're doing illegal marijuana grows out in Oklahoma and other places too. It's not just one state, it's multiple. They're pushing fentanyl into the country. They are trying to impose economic war on us. I would be treating the Chinese a much different way if I was Trump. I would be cutting off most of our trading with them, in fact, because we don't need most of the stuff that they have. In fact, we just don't. They need more from us than we need from them. And I'd say until all fentanyl is expunged from anywhere near my country, and I'm convinced that you're not spying on me, maybe then I'll start letting more Chinese people into the country, but I don't think so right now, because your country is a threat not only from spying and stealing of our infrastructure and our secret files and inventions, but you're also a problem because you're pushing drugs into our country. You're doing illegal marijuana grows in our country, and you're pushing fentanyl into our country, as well as economic war that you're portraying on us. So why would we be a friend to you? Ex-House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's to retire. I mean, it's about time. You should have retired 10, 15 years ago. I wrote, what an absolutely horrible politician she's been. A stain on the country's conscience for generations, right? Enriched herself by insider trading to the tune of maybe $130 million or more in profit. I think her profit margin is something like 16,000% profit. She beats all the gurus, right? How does she do it? Well, she's got inside information. She knows that Sprint is going to do this big deal. She buys a shitload of Sprint and it does the big deal and she makes a ton of money. She tells her husband what to buy and he buys it. That is a gray area of the law that should be changed, right? In other words, if I'm going to be president or senator, I shouldn't be allowed to hold stock, trade stock, buy stock at all. And if I do hold any of it, it should go into a managed by some private entity and I can't touch it or make any stock trades. But that doesn't stop me from telling someone else to make stock trades for me. That's the problem, right? If I give some guy $100,000 check and I say, hey, listen, pretend this is yours. I'll take care of you on the back end. Don't worry about it. Right? Buy the stock I tell you to buy when I tell you to buy, sell when I tell you to sell. You don't think there's people doing that right now? I do. Eccentric Republican who lost New York City mayoral election says he was offered $10 million to drop out in a bid to stop socialist Zoran Mamdani from winning. That was what I just told you, right? Sliwa was offered 10. I'd have probably took it. Because you know he's not going to win. It's all rigged. You should have probably took it. But he was a man of conscience, so I give him credit for at least trying. But he was a bad candidate the last time he ran, and he was a bad candidate this time. Why couldn't the Republicans come up with anybody better than Sliwa? I don't know. You have nobody? That's the best you could come up with? Was Sliwa. Okay, well, I don't see how that is. Because you have nobody with any name recognition in New York, and Republicans are not liked here. Unfortunately, it's a city that votes Democrat for multi-generationally. Democrats summon Andrew to appear in front of Congress to explain his links to Epstein. So Andrew's in trouble because now he's not a royal anymore. He can't necessarily just ignore these. Well, maybe he can. I'm sure he's never going to come set foot in the United States again. He might get arrested if he does set foot over here. That's why he's probably not going to come. Democrats summoned him now. I wrote Democrats summoned him? Wow. You'd think it would have been the Republicans. No, it was the Democrats. Woke Portland lawmaker who said our unhoused neighbors deserve a safe place to sleep has his home torched by a vagrant who secretly moved in. Yeah, so are you still all for those people? Because guess what? One of them moved in your house and torched it. Are you still for those peeps? Probably not, right? I'll tell you what, if I had a house and I show up and there's squatters in there, they're going to have a long day. And a long fucking night, because I'm a devious fucker when it comes to stuff like that. I'll be planning all kinds of shit on you. I'll be playing loud rock music at 2 a.m. I release all kinds of stuff onto you, like mice and roaches on you. I'll do all kinds of crazy shit to get your ass out. Believe me, by day 2, 3, you're gone. You're packing up. You can wait to leave with what I'm going to do. But in all seriousness, you don't want to do that, right? The real way you do it is if you know the person, if it's your house and it's your mom's house or whatever, just get your mom to do a lease for you. You're the tenant of record now. You have a lease showing so. You've rented the apartment from your mom for $1 a month or whatever you decide the rent is some low amount. It doesn't have to be huge rent, but it just shows that you're legally have a right to be in that unit. Now the squatter's in trouble. Why? Because you're moving in. with them. And it's going to be who's going to budge first. I'm going to call the cops on you every day now because I got a lease and you don't have any reason to be here. I do. I got a lease that says I'm supposed to be here. I'm the tenant now. You're not. So you have a problem because you don't have any paper that says you're supposed to be there, right? You don't have a lease or anything like that because you're an illegal tenant. You just broke in. You're a squatter. DOJ is preparing grand jury subpoenas in the John Brennan investigation. Looks like Brennan's going down. So I was looking back at Kim Clement's some of his prophecies, because if you don't know who Kim Clement was, he's passed away now, but he was a preacher who had some prophetic visions about Trump becoming president, like in 2014, in 2013, and in 2015 he was talking about that. One of the prophecies he was talking about the strange infiltration in New York, right? That they're going to infiltrate. And he was right about that. Not just from the illegal aliens infiltrating, but from the infiltration from Mamdani and his people, right? Who are, it looks like, Muslim extremist groups now have tried to take over New York, and we'll see if that actually happens or not, or if Mamdani is, in fact, arrested or removed because of certain crimes that he may have committed. He's not an American-born, natural-born citizen. If it's found he's intriguing with enemies of the United States, he might be removed for that reason. We'll have to see. I'm sure they're going to be trying not to have that happen. Senate Democrats to meet to discuss deal ending government shutdown. What else did you see happen? Mamdani and all those Democrats, where'd they go? They went down to Puerto Rico right away, and they started planning shit. Why do they keep going to Puerto Rico to plan shit for? And then Hochul ended up going from Puerto Rico to the Dominican Republic for some reason with another representative from New York for some reason. We don't know why. And what she did. And she said, oh, well, I'm doing it to improve the tourism between the Dominican Republic and New York. We have plenty of tourism between these two already. There's a lot of Dominicans live here in New York who are from DR, or the Dominican Republic, which is next to where? Haiti. I mean, if you look at the Dominican Republic, it's literally right next to Haiti. Why is Haiti so fucked up, yet the Dominican Republic is thriving? Why is that? Mamdani won the votes of only 14% of New York City adults. 14%. All the rest were kids that voted for him, of under, 21 years old. Or under, 25. This article parrots much of what I was saying about the election's poor turnout, right? You're trying to sell us on the fact that, there was huge turnout of the young vote? Okay. But only 1 million people voted for this guy. There's 8 million people plus in New York City. Where's the other 7 million people's votes? There's only 1 million other people's votes that voted. I mean, Cuomo didn't even get 1 million people's vote. The market's just about to open in 1 minute. So let's see. In a couple of minutes, we'll go check the silver price and gold and see what's going down. Is it open to the big side? It looks like it was going to, right? How did Mamdani win if he only got 14% of the adult vote? Because only 2 million people out of 8 voted, which is 25% of the people showed up. How did almost 75% of New Yorkers not vote? Where are their votes going? Did they vote at all, or they just stayed home? Are votes being thrown out in record numbers to allow this to happen? You'd have to throw out millions of votes, I'm thinking, unless that's just the way voter turnout is so low because people in New York have lost all hope long ago of any kind of election being fair or any of these politicians actually doing the right thing, because none of them have. Go back all the way to Koch and all the way forward to now. None of these have really done the right thing by New York. There's been massive amounts of stealing going on and illegalities. German leaders admit that the migrant crisis is real after censoring a right-wing party that tried to warn them. Well, Germany has probably the biggest problem. They took in millions of these people, right, into Germany, and it's caused a huge problem. Mass migration made a Ugandan socialist mayor of New York City. True. Right? The only way that you could get a guy like Mamdani to win is you have to have record low turnout, and then you have to have one group that you sucker in that really supports him a lot, like the youth group, right? That's why he was on Ari's show, and those guys are going to really realize they made a mistake later. I don't blame Ari, you know. This guy will use any platform that he can to get recognition. It doesn't matter who it is. I just hope he paid you for it at least, and didn't just use you for free, right? Yeah, we flooded the cities with illegal aliens, and then we let them vote. We gave them driver's licenses so they could vote. In some instances, we gave them fake Social Security cards, so they can work here and get money and not pay tax. Bitcoin slipped below 100,000 for the first time since June. Let's check the metals out real quick. Yeah, so silver's up $1.39 to almost $50 an ounce, $49.99. How is it that platinum's up $26.50, palladium's up $26.40? They're almost up the same exact amount, which is odd. That's almost impossible. So silver's at $49.99, up $1.39. Gold's at $4,101 an ounce, up $82. You're starting to see those cryptos slipping, right? Little by little, they're slipping down. Bitcoin's like not nowhere near 120 something thousand. Ethereum has lost like $1,000 off its real quick off its top, right? It was over 4,000. I saw it at like $4,100 a coin. Excuse me. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser was allegedly under federal corruption investigation for her Qatar trip, but then another article came out later saying she was not under investigation, or I believe what's her name came out, who Trump put in Washington D.C. Judge I forgot the judge's name. Sorry, the judge that from Fox that Trump put in. She said that Bowser is in fact not under an investigation right now. So we'll have to see if Judge Bowser, if Mayor Bowser, and she's been the mayor forever. She was the mayor back when Seth Rich died in the hospital. She was at the hospital that night when Seth Rich was moved to the hospital. Did you know that? And he never got out of that hospital, even though both of his wounds were packed, right? He was shot twice. Both of his wounds were packed, and which meant that the bleeding was stopped. He wasn't in life-threatening danger, and a major artery had not been hit or something of that nature, which means that the likelihood was he was going to make a full recovery. So how does he die that night? Why is he moved to a private floor and cops flood the building and he's never seen again? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Where's his laptops? Why did the FBI never turn over his laptops even after saying that they were going to? Elise Stefanik vows to clean up Kathy Hochul's catastrophe. Yeah, she's really destroyed this state. She needs to go. And she wasn't actually voted in, right? The first time. After Cuomo drops out. Senate to vote on full-year funding for military construction, VA, and SNAP in latest bid to end record shutdown. You need to either fund the government or don't, but you can't. You don't have any money to fund the government. Israeli hostage who revealed sexual abuse by his captors details full horror he endured. This guy was really, really horribly treated. He had rocks put into his ears so he couldn't hear. He was sexually tortured 20 minutes a day, seven times a day. 20-minute torture 7 times a day, made to dance blindfolded with stones in his ears for weeks. I have met the devil. Yeah, these people are worse than the Nazis in some aspects of what they did to people. You tortured these people for 2 straight years, some of them. Sexually tortured them. kept them as a hostage, starved these people, and then ate meals right in front of them while they're starving, sexually abused them, raped, torture. So, all these people saying free Palestine, I get it, but you're not looking at the other side of this thing. But the whole thing was staged that way, right? That's what my guess is, right? Let's do a really horrible act. And let's make sure that all the Hamas guys have no mask on, even though all the other times these guys always have a mask on. What does that say about a group of people that always have a mask on? Are you proud of who you are? No, you got to hide your face. That's not showing that you're proud of your service. You got to hide who you are. Plus, they told this guy, if you convert to Islam, we'll give you some food, right? So I wrote attempted forced conversion to Islam. You know what this guy said? I was born a Jew and I'll die a Jew. That's heart. That's heart right there. That's heart. No, I'll never convert to your religion. Never. You'll have to kill me before I'll do it. And I'm ready to die. That's heart. That's courage. And God has a plan for people that do things like that to other people. Right? Multiple people hospitalized from white powder as a suspicious package with political propaganda sparks evacuation at Joint Base Andrews. I don't know what was in that. It turned out that it was nothing, I think. But some people did get sick, so it could have been something. I don't know what it was. Moment pro-Palestinian protester is beaten up by audience members after setting off a flare during Israeli Philharmonic Orchestra performance in Paris. People are sort of getting sick of this whole thing, It's one thing you want to be a protest about something. Stop doing it in certain venues. That's not the place for it. Eventually someone's going to get hurt. You can't set off a flare indoors either. That could start a fire, right? That's a hazard. You want to stand up with a sign and yell your little thing? Okay, what are you really doing to change anything? Nothing. It's just aggravation. It's aggravating people. It's trying to set groups of people against each other. What is the Islamic Caliphate and how has it taken over New York City? FDNY chief is getting out before it's too late. Well, that's what their plan was, to set up the Caliphate, right? We'll pump millions of Muslims, military-age Muslim men into the whitest countries in Europe, right? The whitest ones. What are those? Denmark, Finland, Sweden, right? Germany, France, others. And we're going to make them so they're not so white anymore. We want to erase the white race, in fact, if we can. Completely. I'm not sure why they want to do that so much, but that's what these people want to do. I wrote, when does this crap end? With the the fighting and this. Senate Republicans defeat bill requiring Congress to approve attacking Venezuela. I wrote, I forgot to mention that when I voted for mayor, I was asked the last 3 letters of my last name. I never showed any form of ID, and when I was asked to sign the screen, my signature one matched the one on record because I was signing on a screen with a felt tip marker instead of a piece of paper and a pen. These things allow people who may be voting with a dead person's name and not allowed to vote access to our voting process with no identification needed. That's fact. Here's my Chris Cornell Chester Bennington Surface dig from 5 years ago, 2020, where I'm reading over Chris Cornell's, of course, if you don't remember who Chris Cornell was, he was the lead singer from a group called, I'm sorry, I just forgot the name of the group he's in. I'll think of it in a second. Because he changed groups, right? He was in one group and then he was in... Soundgarden, sorry, right. And of course died of mysterious circumstances in his hotel room with 6 or 7 or 8 broken ribs, and somehow hung himself, which is physically impossible if you have 3 or 4 or I believe all of his ribs are broken, all 8 ribs or 9. So which means that How do you break all your ribs? Well, somebody's got to kick the shit out of you. You got to take a big fall, right? And I'm assuming since somebody broke into his hotel room, somebody beat the shit out of him real bad and then hung him, right? While he was unconscious because he was beaten pretty bad, it looks like. But he did put up quite a struggle, it looked like. And then, of course, they said, oh, he had these drugs in his system. So you could check out that. And then, of course, Chester Bennington was, it looks like to me, was Podesta's son, and who looks exactly like him. And if you remember that horrific recording that came out where Podesta's abusing some young kid and he's saying, what's my name? What's my name? And the kid's like crying and screaming. I think that's Chester Bennington, unfortunately. So you can go look into Chester Bennington and John Podesta and all that rabbit hole if you want to get back into it. UN report, Afghan opium cultivation down, trafficking arrests are up. So usually when the Taliban is in control, they don't allow the poppy cultivation. They eradicate it completely. Which is good because that is where 90% plus of the heroin or that is produced in the world comes from, this opium is where it creates a lot of that heroin, right? And so it needs to be stopped. And that's why we were in Afghanistan all those years, to make sure that for those 20 years that the poppy cultivation was high. So a lot of money was being made selling opium all those years. Moving the opium out into Pakistan and then moving it through to other countries, right, in Europe. Federal judge orders U.S. government to distribute full SNAP benefits. So something's going on where the government says you have to do it, and Trump's saying, no, we're not going to do it. And then New York is stepping in and saying they will fund SNAP benefits, because it was just starting to get to the point where, like a week in and people are starting to get hungry, right? It's going to start getting worse. And I think the reason that Trump did that was he wanted all the blue cities going crazy so he could send all the troops in and then do the Insurrection Act or Posse Comitatus, whatever, something big where he has full control. So the judge says that the U.S. government has to distribute full SNAP benefits. I don't know if that's happened, though, yet. Chile expects a 25% increase in gold production, so Chile's going to be rich. They got some gold mines that they're bringing back up because the price is high. Why not? I'd be ramping up gold production. But, of course, gold production is extremely pollutive. Depending on how you're mining, right? Kristi Noem tours site a potential U.S. military base in Ecuador. So why are we going to build another military base? We should be closing military bases that we can't afford all over the world. Now they're looking at making a military base in Ecuador because why? Well, they want to have something down there in case to interdict and in case more drugs are still moving through these areas, right? That's where all the drugs are coming through a lot of these countries on their way up to Mexico and then to come into the United States. Something doesn't add up in New Jersey's election results, and pollsters know it. Something doesn't add up in the New York and the New Jersey races, especially. The New York race is very, very suspicious, and I don't know why more news people aren't talking about that fact. They're really trying to portray it here as a record turnout, which I can't understand how they... I guess it must be for other races it is, but it's not a record. It's a record low turnout, you should say. It's not record turnout, it's record low turnout, right? Nobody's voting. 6 million people almost didn't vote, which means that a lot of people here can't vote or they don't vote. If they do vote, their votes are thrown out. I don't think you could get rid of 5 or 6 million votes, though. That's a lot to go. Where would you put them all? There was a surge in the voting, the early voting, which is how I think they rigged this thing in the first place. Because he only has to... If you're only talking about 1 million votes he needs, and you'd already got 150,000 or 100,000 off the bat, well... James Comey's own notes prove he knew the Russia hoax was a Clinton plot. Yeah, he thought he was going to be working for Hillary, but then why does he then say that they reopened the thing into Hillary, remember? Something had changed right after that point. He thinks he's working for Hillary, then why would you screw Hillary over in the thing and say that they had reopened some looking into her email stuff, right? Why does Trump leave Comey in place when he knows he's a player that helped the Clintons in the past and he knows he's a player that cleans up messes for these people? He must know who Comey is. He has to know his pedigree. If he doesn't, then he was badly advised, which is probably true also, because look who he puts in his first term: Omarosa. He puts in McMaster, who turns against him. He puts in Flynn, who ends up turning against him. All these bad people around him for some reason. Right? Comey knew he was trying to set up. Of course they knew. You got Strzok saying to Page, hey, we'll take care of it, don't worry. Russiagate subpoenas sent out by grand jury as Comey prosecution unearths new revelations. Russiagate-related grand conspiracy case ramps up as trial against James Comey looms, and each day brings new revelations about Biden's DOJ weaponizing the justice system. We know all this already. This isn't that news, really. 500,000 pounds of drugs have been foiled. The U.S. Coast Guard crushes cartels with 20-25% haul. How come you got so much more than you used to get? Well, because we were letting it come in. We've been letting it come in container ship level amounts for years, right? That's how these guys are getting so rich in the cartels, that they become bigger than corporations. Or they become like a corporation. Tons of Mamdani supporters don't actually know why they voted for him. Yeah, I don't know. Free buses. Yeah, whatever. The buses are never going to be free, by the way. Hochul already said so. Why? Well, because they need that in. First of all, the MTA is horribly underfunded, right? They have all these big wigs that they get all these big salaries, and they're trying to do a Second Avenue subway project, boondoggle, that's cost billions upon billions of dollars and still isn't done. Although it's almost done. Was it ever really needed to have a Second Avenue subway? Not really, I don't think. There's a subway that runs along Lexington Avenue already. A couple of avenues over. It's called the 456 train. But they're saying that line is crowded, and it is crowded. It's true, it is. Do you have to spend $2 billion plus to dig a tunnel through the ground? Probably not, but that's what happens in New York with any big project. It's a lot of the funds get ripped off. They don't have any idea who they voted for. They voted for a socialist Muslim, is who you voted for. Zoran Mamdani already is begging for cash. Pay a fee to get stuff for free. He's already asking for his transition team for people to donate to that. Where's the $40 million that you just already got from Soros? Plus the full matching funds. You got like $12 million from this city already. So you got like $50 million. What do you need? Isn't that enough? Appeals court upholds Florida law restricting Chinese communist land purchases. That's a good idea. At least in Florida. But didn't they built a 1,500... I mean, they bought 1,500 acres to make a primate research center, the Chinese did in Florida. Did that? I hope you rescinded that deal. If you didn't, go look up the 1,500 acre purchase of land that China did to create a primate research center. You trying to do Planet of the Apes for real too? ICE sets new detainees record with 66,000 illegal migrants in custody. There were 39,000 individuals in ICE's detention system when Trump returned to power in January, and ICE has the capacity to hold as many as 70,000 people. Wow, that's a lot. You got to be able to hold way more than that if you want to get rid of 30, 40 million people there, right? And are you going after other people, like Chinese people who are here illegally and other groups, that, or are you just going after like certain people from Central and South American nations only? Because there's other people here from all other different nations too that shouldn't be here, that have stayed past on school visas, work visas. What about them? Kanye West makes a groveling apology to New York City rabbi, blames bipolar disorder after years of anti-Semitic tirades. What the hell? I said, what the F is this guy doing? I have no clue. Right? He goes on some rant how he loves Hitler, and then you're going to go back to try to talk to some Jewish rabbi? I mean, if you love Hitler, stick with that then, right? You hate Jews, then stay hating them. I mean, how are you going to turn back around at this point after going so far down that hole of hatred and racism? Is this guy just being run by somebody else to look like a total idiot, or is he just doing it all by himself? I don't know at this point. He's no hero to me, though. Never was. Right? We know what people like this do to get their fame, right? He gave his mother up, basically, to get that fame. That's why his mother died in some routine procedure, right? Imported tribal conflicts among immigrant Somalis tanked Omar Fateh's mayoral chances. There's so many Somalis there that he almost won. Somebody needs to do something about Michigan and about Minnesota before the call to prayer is being broadcast from every major city in Michigan. And it is being already broadcast in certain cities there. Scientists are baffled as interstellar visitor mysteriously shrinks ahead of Earth flyby. So I'm hearing so many things about this AI Atlas. It's so crazy, man. I don't know what to believe anymore. The most recent is that it's actually the people on AI Atlas are actually us from the future that came back to make sure we don't fuck this moment up. Which kind of makes some kind of sense, actually. Because I had heard that argument before that, yeah, like people in the future fucked up and they cloned so much or whatever that they just ruined the DNA. So they keep coming back here to try to get people's DNA. Right? You ever wake up? I've heard people wake up with scarring on their body. I've had that happen where I wake up with like cuts that are healed already partially. I don't know how I got them. That's usually from people like stealing your DNA when you're asleep, like aliens and stuff. You got to watch Jupiter Ascending. They show how they do it when you're asleep. They can take control of you. If I'm in another dimension that you can't see, I can mess around with you and do whatever I want. I can take your DNA when you're sleeping and you don't even know it, right? But the question is, what are they doing with our DNA? Why are they... Who is on AI Atlas? Is it aliens? And now I'm hearing that there's other craft that are with them they're all peaceful. They're here to watch our ascension process and make sure nobody messes around with us. So let's hope that's the truth, because that's the only way I see out of this thing. I don't see a good guy who's in it for us. I don't think that Trump and his people are the good guys in this. So if they aren't the good guys in this, who is? Maybe it's the aliens that some of them whom are good, right, and some of whom are bad. I'm assuming. Right, I'm assuming if there's bad aliens, which I'm assuming there are, then there must in fact also be good aliens, right? If you're in a dualistic 3D world that's inverted, you still have that dualism, right? There has to be good, there has to be evil, there has to be light, there has to be dark, there has to be yin, there has to be yang, right? There's yin and there's yang, there's good and there's bad, there's light and there's dark, there's love and there's hate, right? Everything has its opposite. And that's how this world is set up, but that's not how every world is. Who is in AI Atlas? Are they communicating with anybody here? I haven't heard anything. If I do, I'll let you know. But I don't feel like, when I think or look at that thing, I don't feel like I'm scared of it. I'm not worried about it. I'm hoping that it's filled with some people that might want to give some other people a hand that desperately need help, right? Because, I mean, if you were to look at our situation from an outside perspective, you would say, wow, these people are really, really getting screwed as a populace, right? They're getting poisoned, they're getting propagandized, they're being lied to by their governments, they're being forced to take vaccines that are hurting and killing some of them, they're being forced into cities and they're being forced into more and more surveillance state in some of these cities, right? They're being lied to, they're being poisoned by the food that their governments are giving them. Yeah, we should help these people out a little bit. They got no fucking chance. They're dealing with people way more powerful than them. How are these people going to get free? They can't even get along with each other. And if we can't get along with each other, how are we going to fight an enemy that's maybe not even on this planet, or that doesn't like us? How are we going to fight that enemy if we can't even come together as one under the banner of our humanity? And that's why they have us fighting each other so much, so that we can never do that. Janine Pirro says Bowser is not under investigation. That was the article I was talking about. After media report on Qatar trip. Why is she going to Qatar, right? Why would the mayor of Washington, D.C. have any business in Qatar or Qatar? Just like, why is Hochul going to the Dominican Republic and Why are all these Democrats going down to Puerto Rico for on the public's dime? Having these private meetings. What are they doing down there? I don't see the Republicans do that. Diddy got caught apparently allegedly drinking moonshine in prison after telling judge he's sober. Yeah, they got that prison shine. It's some nasty, disgusting crap that they ferment, whatever they're doing. But you can get high up in jail. Yeah, there's certain jails have drugs smuggled in. You can get heroin and other drugs in jail too, in some jails. Some jails, a cigarette costs like $100 for a pack of cigarettes before they ban smoking in most of the prisons. $100 a pack, baby. Maybe more now, right? Iran's plot to assassinate Israeli ambassador revealed for the first time. What's the point of just killing the ambassador for? That doesn't make any sense. That's just going to set off a whole other response from Israel that you're not going to want. Maybe that's the point. There was record rains in Buenos Aires. More than 12 million acres of farmland are now underwater. So a whole shit ton of crops just got destroyed, is my guess. It's going to be possible food shortages in Buenos Aires in the next 6 months. Have to keep an eye down there. Senate GOP Dems reject each other's proposals to end the shutdown. Well, the Democrats keep putting stuff in there like, hey, can you do, can you give all the illegal aliens free health care, even though a lot of New Yorkers don't have any? Is that all right? And we'll use those people, that the American citizens and the citizens of New York's tax dollar to do it. But they will make sure that they don't get any health coverage. Only the illegal aliens will. But we'll take those peoples who don't have the health coverage, their tax money to do it. Isn't that unbelievable? That enrages the people in New York who are citizens of New York who don't have health coverage like me, and gets them angry, right? Why am I not getting free health care first? Why are these people who aren't even citizens here getting it? Why is my tax dollar going for people that don't live here and pay any tax here? Manhattan-sized interstellar object 3i Atlas loses the tail after passing the sun. So I don't think comets usually lose their tail, do they? I've never heard of that. And then they change colors and stuff. That's odd. So is this some kind of craft? Is it some kind of energy that's being beamed by some people in another density to show that they're here with us? We don't know. We have no idea. Because NASA is not telling us what it really is and what they're seeing. They're not focusing. They're showing us what any communications that may or may not have come from such an object. So we don't know, because our government doesn't want us to know. And until they do want us to know, or until we force them to give us the information, I don't know what's going to happen. We don't seem to ever have any real disclosure about aliens, if they're real, or alien tech, or if we have alien craft. And then Joe Biden the creature playing Joe Biden came out of its cave for a while, was bandaged up. Bandaged up Biden says son Beau should have been the president. Yeah, that was their plan, was to make Beau the president. He was going to be the one. He was clean, right? He didn't have the bad pedigree that Hunter had. He had the clean pedigree. He was in the military. He was clean. He didn't have a drug problem. He was married. He was already in a political office. He was ready to go. He was perfectly primed. He was going to give the Bidens another into the political spectrum where they could sell their influence. But it seemed like to me that Beau wasn't down with that, right? Beau was actually trying to do it maybe the right way. But he never got a chance because he got cancer, right? Why did he get cancer? Well, he was around depleted uranium. Some of the rounds that soldiers were using over there in the first Gulf War and the other wars, they were using ammunition that has depleted uranium in the rounds, in the bullets, right? Or some of those tank shells also have, if you're working in a tank, have those tank rounds have depleted uranium, some of those shells. That's how they can pierce through armor. Republicans scorn absurd non-starter Schumer ploy to end shutdown. Yeah, so Schumer's just got to go. All these people got to go. The Binance founder says he was a little bit surprised by the Trump pardon. Yeah, you think? I bet you he was. But did he have some deal with the Sons? Did the Sons making money off crypto? Well, yeah, they are. Both Trump's sons are making quite a bit of money on crypto endeavors, no? Yeah. Trump wins temporary Supreme Court block on full food benefits amid shutdown, so he doesn't want to pay out the SNAP benefits anymore. Because some people are really abusing the SNAP benefits in a large degree, right? Some people sell their SNAP cards. Some people used to sell the stamps or sell their card to somebody else for a discounted price. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Fergie being probed and could face jail time. Be forced out of the UK. He's toast. It looks like finally Andrew might get some kind of justice might come. And also for his wife, Fergie's being probed. So what did they do? Did they take money from Epstein? Well, yeah, she did. She took money from Epstein, but we're not sure what else they did. It looks like she may have been, I don't know, I have to research this more, but I thought that there was some article that had come out a while back where she was setting up meetings for people to pay to meet certain people within the monarchy, like Andrew and stuff, right? Where you could get access for a price. I have to look into that to see if that allegation was true. I think that's what she may have been involved in. Zoran Mamdani's wife Rama Juwaji uses her art to rage against the U.S. imperialism and Israeli war crimes. You know, it's funny that these people who seem to not like this country so much, but then why are you living here? Why are you running for our political processes then? If you dislike this country so much, why don't you go back to Uganda or wherever you're from? No, they want to take over this country. Nancy Pelosi made $130 million in stock profits during her congressional career. That's a return of 16,930%. That's not too bad, right? That's not because she's such a good stock picker. No. That's because she knows what's going down before it's going down, right? She doesn't invest in shit just on a whim. She invests in stuff that she knows is going to make money because something is going through, some legislation is going through that helps that company, right? And she knows about it ahead of time. No illegal aliens were released into the United States during the last 6 months, Trump declares. Well, that's good, because a whole bunch already were the last 4 years, right? So, friends, I need to take that break. That coffee's getting low. I'm about an hour and 20 minutes in, so that's way past the time when I usually I'm after an hour, my coffee's running out, but I'm sipping light today, so. We've had some overcast weather here the last couple of days. We have a freeze warning here. It's 55 right now. It's going to start. The vortex is going to drop down all the way down almost to Texas in the next coming days. So if you're living somewhere up in the north, get ready, man. Get that winter jacket out because you're going to need it soon. I've already heard it's snowing in parts of Canada. Got that first snow, I think, in Toronto. Some other places. So I hope you're doing well, working out, stretching. I am continuing my workouts into my 14th year. I'm really proud of that. It's becoming harder to work out as you get older, but you at some point modify your routines to accommodate your bodily aches and pains that you may have. That's all. I think a lot of people are starting to move towards a calisthenic type workout, using the body weight more, pull-ups, dips, push-ups, sit-ups, planks, crunches, dips, burpees, stuff like that, where you're using just your body more. And you're seeing these guys get ultra ripped, ultra in shape because, yeah, if you do 400 or 500 push-ups every other day, you're going to be in good shape pretty much. Your whole upper body will be at least. So I hope you're doing well, doing push-ups, sit-ups, trying to take care of yourself physically as well as mentally, right? Part of the healing that you're going to be doing is when you need to heal is you'll go inside. Like when a butterfly is created, right? It's just not a butterfly. A process has to happen first. Where the caterpillar has to go into the chrysalis, right? Inside the chrysalis, it creates its cocoon around itself to protect, so that it can go into that state of mind where it needs to go inside first and then come out. when it's all healed and everything is beautiful, and you come out of that chrysalis as the butterfly, right? As something completely different. And that's what's happening with us right now. We're changing. Because the energy is changing. The energy that's hitting this earth is changing us for the positive. And they don't want that to happen. Because once we change, we're going to come, I think, revert back to what the original human being was, the Who Man, which was much different than what we are now. Much better. Much stronger. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you're on your ascension process. If not, then start to think about that you want to ascend to the next level. Start to think about laying down your karma, laying your ego down, living from the heart space more, trying to forgive yourself and all others you think have harmed you. But it really starts off with self-love and forgiveness of self, right? That's what I found. Love of self, then love of others. Forgiveness of self, then forgiveness of others. Take care of self first, then others, right? You have to. Like when an airplane's going down and you're traveling with a child, what do they instruct you to do? If the oxygen mask comes down, who do you take care of first? You. Why? Because if I pass out, I can't put the mask on my kid. They might not know how to do it. Yourself first, then others. Okay? So I hope you're well. Sorry to go on and on about that, but that's a key issue that I found is part of my healing process, was that I needed to forgive self and love self first. That's the first step of that foundation you're putting down in that house that you're building of your healing, right? So I love and care about all of you. I forgive you, even though you didn't do anything to hurt me. I forgive all those in the world that did. And through that forgiveness and love of self, I find freedom. So that's how you'll find some of your freedom, friends. And that's not so easy to forgive certain people or others for certain things they may have done. But when you get to that level and that point in your life where you can do it, you'll find that you'll become free. So I hope you're well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. I'm going to go get that coffee, and you could do some sit-ups, push-ups, and burpees, and I'll be right back. Thanks, friends. Okay, I'm back. Thanks, friends. I appreciate that break. So no illegal aliens were released into the U.S. in the last 6 months, but there's millions here that need to be removed still. And he hasn't even come into New York at all yet. I wonder what he's waiting for in force. Now you got Mamdani going to come in, and Trump's going to try to have ICE come in here. That's going to be a problem. I wonder how that works out, if Mamdani gets arrested or not for the crimes he's committed. Does he get removed from the mayorship, or does he allowed to take office? I don't understand how. If he's took all this money from foreigners that he never gave back, which is illegal, he should have never been allowed to run. Brennan, Page, and Strzok were subpoenaed in the DOJ's Russiagate probe. That's a long time coming. Those three did a lot of damage. More subpoenas are reportedly expected for others in coming days. So it looks like these guys are going to go to jail for it now. This is all that stuff that should have happened when Trump's first term when he got in. But he never touched these people. Trump threatens to punish New York City over Mamdani while he arrests new mayor and block funds. I don't know if he can arrest the new mayor. I think he could order him be arrested if he's broken laws. He should be arrested because he took foreign funds, and it appears that a super PAC was giving him money that's attached to Soros, or the Open Society Foundation. J6 pipe bomber has been identified now. The Blaze claims it found a match. They saying it's a woman? They know who the pipe bomber... I thought they knew who the pipe bomber was a while ago. There's one of the pipe bombs with the timer on it. That looks so fake to me. That is like the fakest looking thing I've ever seen. Source, USCP plainclothes agent. The Blaze claims that its forensic analysis, confirmed by intelligence sources, has finally found a potential match for the long unidentified January 6 pipe bomber. The outlet insisted that a software algorithm that experts utilized narrowed down the identity of the masked pipe bomber to Shauni Rae Kerkhoff a former U.S. Capitol Police officer who in mid-2021 went to work security detail for the CIA. The FBI is yet to confirm or deny the identification. Ironically, the same intelligence agencies that managed to track down practically every individual who was within a few miles of the Capitol on January the 6th, 2021, and many more who were not present that day, have yet to announce they could identify the suspicious individual who planted the pipe bomb. Authorities discovered the pipe bombs planted near the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee in 2021, but despite security camera footage, have yet to identify a suspect. Regardless of the accuracy of this new allegation, it's very important that the FBI finally identify who did plant the bombs. Kerkhoff's home appeared to be under surveillance yesterday, and police pulled over the Blaze's editor-in-chief, Christopher Bedford, after he paused to observe the residence, the outlet reported. So they used an algorithm that looks at how you walk and stuff like that, so they're not sure it's her. I mean, they can see the person's video and they can know what their height is. They can see maybe how they walk and match it that way. But that's not the same as having a person's face on video doing something, right, where the camera's picking them up doing it. Two other sources familiar with gait analysis who viewed the video comparison and the software analysis told Blaze they concurred that the video samples matched the gait of the gray hoodie wearing suspect. Okay, so we'll just leave that there for now. Not sure how they really figure that out by just looking at somebody walking. Shots fired at ICE agents in Chicago, according to the DHS. This incident is not isolated and reflects a growing and dangerous trend of violence. Well, there was an allegation that one of the Latin gangs in Chicago has issued a kill order, shooting order against ICE agents. It's hard to confirm if that's true or not. Mamdani's day one promise to confiscate privately owned buildings if owners don't pay big fines, make assess repairs. The city has taken over the building, he said, in that case. Usually you wouldn't want that, right? Obviously, you don't want the building, but the problem with New York is that there's a lot of buildings that have multiple violations, and for some reason there's no enforcement protocols where tenants are living in horrific conditions sometimes in buildings that have not been properly taken care of, and then something will collapse like a staircase or somebody. You see every once in a while the side of a building will collapse or part of it, and that's why. You just had that happen in the Bronx, actually, where the whole side of a building, like a laundry chute or some kind of I think it was the chute that goes down to the basement, with the garbage chute, that whole part of the building, basically just sheared off and collapsed off the side of the rest of the structure. And why does stuff like that happen? Usually it's because the building is not pointed properly every, I think buildings with brick are supposed to be pointed every 3 to 5 years. I'm not sure. It might be 5 years. In other words, water, the elements, we get all 4 seasons here in New York. The bricks take a lot of beating, and you got to point the buildings every once in a while. If not, the bricks can come loose and fall out. That's how a girl got killed. She was walking down the street and some guy didn't do the proper maintenance on his building. Some plaster or some brick fell off, hit the girl in the head, and she died. They actually created a law that says you have to have these scaffolds now, if your building's unsafe or whatever. That's why a lot of these buildings are not being properly taken care of. Senate adjourns with no vote, will resume session Sunday. They came back Sunday. It appears now some 7 or 8 Democrats have, probably more to the center Democrats that are left, have decided that the shutdown is not helping their party at all. It's hurting the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party is already in a bad place. And they need this to end quick before the food stamps thing becomes a big problem. And it's close to becoming that. Senate adjourns with no vote, so they came back and they still can't fix it, but I think they might have come close to fixing it. We'll see. But are they really fixing it? No, they're just kicking the can down the road. They're not addressing the issue that they have no money. Capitol Police Officer Shauni Kerkhoff identified as the J6 bomber. Huh. Well, they can also go back and find and follow her for that day, right? Where was she? Where was her cell phone pinging from and stuff like that, unless she didn't take it with her. Crowd chants Allahu Akbar as New York City Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani speaks in mosque. I mean, that's really upsetting to a lot of people here, let me tell you. Especially since it obviously appears that you rigged the election to make it so only 1 million or 2 million people voted somehow. Flood fears prompt urgent evacuations after Carter Lake Dam breach in Texas. We just had a typhoon hit in Alaska, which is highly unusual. I don't remember ever hearing a typhoon hit Alaska before. Usually a typhoon needs warm water to fuel it. Well, the water sure as fuck ain't warm up in Alaska. That's some cold water up there. Where was the typhoon getting its fuel from? Well, weather mod, I'm assuming. There's a dam breach possible in Carter Lake Dam in Texas. Virginia may not have been only woman trafficked to Andrew. Virginia Giuffre may have not only been the only woman trafficked. I'm sure she wasn't. I mean, this guy's a sex addict, right? I mean, let's be real. I mean, he goes to Thailand and orders, I don't know what, 5 prostitutes or 40 different prostitutes in a several-day period. That's somebody who's a sex addict. And, has a lot of money and privilege and can do whatever he wants to do. And he was used to doing what he wanted to. Go look at Andrew when he was younger, what he was doing. He's a freaking nut job. He was partying all over the place. He looked like he was coked out of his mind half the time. Or on adrenochrome. Go look at young Andrew and go check him out, the pictures of younger Andrew when he was partying all over the time. Trump announces U.S. boycott of G20 in South Africa. So Trump said nobody's going. We're not going to that. I posted a Richie from Boston, the takeover of your country, the Muslim takeover. He does a good show on that. He's one of the few guys I think is doing the right thing. He's been out there a long time, making videos. He doesn't seem to have anywhere to live anymore. He seems to live from his truck. Nearly 200 million people in federal health-related grants benefited illegal aliens since 2021. $250 million just for that small amount, right? So I wrote, we are being replaced, especially those of us over 45. Just understand that so you know how to vote the next time for your public officials. But look at the Democrats up here in the United States and look at the Democrats up here in New York. They're fighting ICE, removing the illegal aliens that are disenfranchising them, and they don't even see it. They don't see it. They just think that Trump is evil and Trump's, this and that. Right? I don't think Trump is doing the right thing. Obviously he's not. He's making it look like he is, but is he really doing anything about the core big issues? No. Where's the medical beds? Where's the Tesla? Where's free energy? He's not doing that. He's talking about drilling for more oil and digging for more coal. Wisconsin Democrat Gov. Tony Evers and entourage spent over $160,000 on European economic development trip. The cost included $69,000 for a chauffeur and limo service. Wow, really? That's a lot. I'll drive you around for cheaper than that, dude. Christ. Excuse my French. Well, that's a lot of money. Feds dismantle South American theft ring linked to violent break-in captured on video in Texas. The group of suspects is believed to be linked to South American theft group SATG, South American Theft Group, an organized network of foreign nationals who travel throughout the U.S. to rob wealthy homes and businesses. President Trump promised $2,000 tariff. Now there's people starting to get these home systems that have non-lethal guns, stuff like that on them, like pellets, right, that shoot the person, that can shoot somebody on your porch. I think those are going to start to become more prevalent, and also maybe even more lethal, right? Maybe I want to put a 9mm on my porch. How about that? Am I allowed to do that if it's my land, my porch, defending my home, and I've had break-ins? Do I maybe want, and I'm not at my house year-round, maybe I need to put something like something more lethal in there. But then what if somebody can circumvent that and then now they got a firearm, right? They stole from you. So probably not the best idea. But there are some non-lethal firearms that fire pellets of pellets filled with something like I don't know, bear spray or that kind of stuff, right? That messes a person up pretty bad that has them tearing, their eyes all tearing and coughing, right? Tear gas and some kind of stuff like that. I was going to say nerve agent. No, you can't shoot nerve agent at people, but there are some people trying to come up with some non-lethal other ways to protect their home. There's people even who are doing stuff against porch pirates, people who steal packages, like leaving rigged boxes on their porch that blow up and put ink all over them and stuff like that. President Trump promises a $2,000 tariff dividend to every person in the United States. People that are against tariffs are fools. So I wrote, where's my $5,000 Doge check first? Then I'll take the $2,000. So I'll take $7,000. Thank you. You owe me $7,000, not $2,000. Where's my Doge check? $5,000 you promised. Where's the $2,000 for this? And where's the other $2,000 that you should have given us a long time back when you first got in? Because you never gave anybody any money for a long time here, and people are hurting. So really, it's $9,000. That's what I said, right? Give every American $10,000 tax free, just right off the bat. Boom. That's what you should have done. Especially those in the lowest tax brackets. Those in the highest tax brackets don't need $10,000. Everybody making $100,000 or less gets a $9,000 check. I don't have a problem with that. I don't see why you couldn't do that. Instead of spending $800 billion on the military, you could have given every American $10,000. But then you would be giving some of the fake illegal aliens who are here as Americans money too that they don't deserve, right? That's the problem. How progressives engineered voting rules to help Zoran Mamdani win. The way they did that was something called rank choice voting, right? That's how a person like a Mamdani can get in with less than the majority of the votes, which he got on less than the majority in the first, right? He only had 40-something%, yet he still won. That's because of rank choice voting. Rank choice voting should be removed immediately. It should be made illegal. But that's how a Mamdani can win. At least 10 Senate Democrats expected to vote to advance package of funding bills to reopen the government. It looks like 7 or 8 of them did. Two pictures on the Washington Guardians. Is it the Washington Guardians? I don't know. The Guardians baseball team. 2 pitchers, Emmanuel Chase and Luis Ortiz, have been indicted in gambling scheme bombshells. So this gambling thing is going into different sports. It's basketball, it's baseball, it's football too. It's going to go into college football. It's going to go into. All those are rigged. All of it. I think most of the sports are rigged. In fact, rigged. Is my guess. Nancy Pelosi, a brief refresher course article. You can check out all the stuff she's done. The first openly trans lawmaker. What happened with that person? They admitted to sickening child sex charges involving kids as young as 3. So the first openly trans lawmaker is a pedophile. Set of jets surrounding 3i Atlas could be used for navigation of a spacecraft. So you could see that this thing has jets on it and you're not showing us what it looks like. Why not? How do you know it has jets on it when all you're showing is like a bright light? Isn't that weird? Oh, so you have another view of this thing. You're not showing us. I get it. Okay. Are you receiving any communications to the people of Earth? Sorry, I didn't mean the American people. Are you receiving any communications from 3i Atlas to the people of Earth, and you're not sharing it with the people of Earth? You don't have a right to keep those communications secret if you are in fact doing that. NASA. And it looks like France's ex-president Sarkozy is going to be released from prison as he appeals his case. He gets to stay free while he appeals, and I'm sure they'll make that appeal go on for years and years till he dies, and it'll disappear, right? Governor Kathy Hochul says no to Zoran Mamdani's free bus plan. I cannot set forth a plan right now that takes money out of a system that relies on the fares of the buses and the subways. Yeah, how do you think they fund that system? How do you think they pay the MTA people and do improvements? They use the money from the MTA, from bus fares, from train fares. If you make the buses and the trains free, Forget it. How are you going to pay the MTAs massive salaries? You're going to have to pay them with other city funds. Some of these monies pay off municipal bonds, etc. The city has to pay out on, right? There's muni bonds. The city sells municipal bonds and different bonds that the city uses to help fund things like the 2nd Avenue subway and projects. Some of the way that those bonds get paid out is through the MTA's fares, right? The MTA has to pay out on those. The city has to use the MTA's funds to pay out on them. You can't have a free buses. It costs too much money. You could have free buses if you had free energy and a robotic system that goes back and forth on 14th Street. Yeah, you could do it that way. If you had free energy, you don't have to pay a bus driver to drive the bus. You don't have to pay for gas. We have a lot of electric buses in the city now, but not all of them are. MLB pitchers indicted in alleged betting scheme face up to 65 years in prison. But some guy that goes and hits somebody over the head with something and knocks them out and steals their money, they get right back out. These guys are just betting on sports, right? They're cheating at sports and they're looking to get way more time. We have a problem with our justice system here in this country. Shoot on sight. Chicago gang orders hits on Border Patrol. I said stay frosty. Senator Moreno sent Chuck Schumer running from the Senate floor like a coward the other day when he started questioning. And this was an interesting article I want to cover because there's an interesting question he's asking Schumer. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer abruptly fled the Senate floor on Sunday after freshman Senator Bernie Moreno, Republican from Ohio, cornered him on the Democrats' absurd Obamacare subsidy proposal to reopen the government, exposing that the plan would funnel taxpayer dollars to millionaires through insurance companies, while Democrats refused to put anything in writing. The exchange began when Moreno pressed Schumer on whether Democrats have produced an actual written proposal extending their controversial COVID emergency Obamacare subsidies. Schumer quickly became defensive as Moreno's questions intensified. When asked directly if a proposal existed that senators could read, Schumer dodged, quote, "There is a proposal that is very simple. First, you haven't put your proposed ACA, your proposed fix to the ACA, the new one, which Leader Thune has spoken about on the floor, so we can't give you a counter in writing," unquote. He claimed the Democratic plan consisted of merely 2 sentences, quote unquote, that would extend ACA benefits for 1 year, though no such written document has materialized for review. So where's the written document that would extend the ACA benefits, and why are they being extended when they're not a good idea? Why are we still dealing with Obamacare stuff? Schumer interrupted, insisting Republicans should first pass the 1-year extension. Moreno then zeroed in on the absurdity at the heart of the Democratic proposal. Quote, would it does still have no income caps? So people who make $1 million, $2 or $3 million a year, unquote. Schumer interrupted, insisting Republicans should first pass the 1-year extension, then negotiate details afterward. A political maneuver that would lock in benefits for wealthy Americans while promising future reforms that may never come. All while setting up another shutdown battle just in time for the midterm elections. Yeah, this is classic tactics, right? But I wanted to just note that there's no anything actually written about this. It's just a sentence in something. Shutdown deal has been reportedly reached, so we'll have to see in the days coming if the shutdown has been averted. Alina Habba, DOJ moves swiftly and decisively to stop ISIS-linked Halloween terror plot targeting Jews. So we don't know if that actually was true, but it appears there was some attack that was going to be. And it appears that some of these kids who are here who are Muslim in this country now are starting to think it's cool to pretend to do a jihad, to pretend to want to, or to actually try to do something to attack certain ethnic groups or certain religious groups in this country. So let's hope that that's not the case. Trump administration is considering 50-year mortgages. That's a long time to pay off, baby. When are you going to get that mortgage? When you're 20? Most people don't live past 80, so what are you going to... If you're over 30, it's going to be hard to get a 50-year. Think the bank's going to give a guy like me, I'm 55 years old, a 50-year? Yeah, you want to give me a 50-year? I'll pay you back by the time I'm 105, I promise. If I live that long. Which the odds are I won't, right? Maybe in the future I will. If we have med beds, you could do a 50-year. Maybe that's why they're thinking about doing that, right? Yeah, you'll have plenty of time. And plus, people have way more money. You'll have, if you get to live, hundreds of years maybe, you probably accumulate quite a bit of cash in those times, right? If you're investing or doing other stuff, working, I don't know, getting super smart. Be some really sick musicians out there and people like that. It's like, how long you been playing guitar? I don't know, like 150 years? Wow, you must have mastered the instrument by now. Not too many people mastered the guitar. I don't even think that Jimi Hendrix did, really. I think Prince did. I mean, if you're talking about mastering the instrument, not just playing it really, really well, but mastering it. That's a whole different thing. Only if, Prince played several instruments at mastery level. Guitar, he played drums, I think, and he also played, I think, keyboard. He played guitar, bass, I think drums, and I think keyboard. I'm not sure about keyboard. But he had mastered the guitar, drums, and I think the bass as well. Mastered the instrument. That's a whole different thing. Yeah, Jimi Hendrix was an amazing guitarist, but he couldn't read or write music. That's what bugged a lot of people out when they met him. They're like, what? You're like a freaking savant. You can't even write music at all. You don't even know how to read it. You're just playing by ear. It's like, yep. And I'm killing it. Very few people that have that gift. So what happened? Trump pardoned Giuliani, Chesbro, dozens more. Sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell is asking the Trump administration to commute her prison sentence, House Dems claim. I wonder if that is the case, right? Because we're getting to the end of this thing, and how are you going to tie up the Epstein thing into a neat bundle where you can't get possibly, where it can't be investigated much more because it could lead back to you, right? And it does lead to Trump. And they say it doesn't lead to Trump, but we know Trump's with this guy for years. He knows him. And just the fact that he may or may not have been on the island doesn't necessarily mean he wasn't doing other stuff. Remember the cruise that he's trying to arrange with Epstein, where it's just going to be the two of them and all those girls from the teen pageant that he's setting up, right? And even the guy who's setting this thing up, helping him do it, says, I can't have just you and Epstein on the boat with all these girls, and people are going to see it. There's going to be pictures taken. People are going to say, what are you doing alone with all these women? Their parents are going to see it. So we have to, I guess, wait. We have to continue to wait. Newsom blasts pathetic Democrats for surrendering to Trump as Gang of 8 senators join Republicans to end the government shutdown. Republicans in the Senate were joined by 7 Democrats and 1 independent on Sunday to vote on a stopgap measure which would allow government funding to resume until late January. Okay. The breakthrough deal to end the 40-day government impasse overcame its first major hurdle with a 60-40 Senate vote about 11 p.m. The House will convene on Monday, today, and send the bill to President Trump's desk, which I'm assuming he'll sign. But that's just a stopgap. Again, that's 2 months. They kicked the can down the road again. They never addressed the issue. Trump never came out and said we're bankrupt. They're just going to continue to print more money. The shutdown has left 42 million Americans with no access to their SNAP benefits, forced airlines to cancel. That's the other problem. The airlines were going. We were going to have to shut the airlines down completely at one point. That, you know how much money they're going to lose. How long do you think American Airlines can go without doing any flights? How are they going to pay all their pilots and all their stewardesses and stewards and all the people that work at the different gate facilities and all the people that work at the check-in spots and all the people that work in the airports? There's a lot of money that has to get paid out to run an airport. A lot of people working it, right? You got TSA, you got Other people that security, you have the people that work at the different airlines and the gates and the stewards and the stewardesses, the pilots. There's a lot of people involved. A lot of unions involved. They're not going to be too happy if they ain't getting paid. Right? You don't want those people unhappy. Those are the people that are responsible for a lot of people's lives. Right? You don't want your airline pilots unhappy and stressed out. They already have a highly stressed job. You don't want the guys that handle all the planes, the air traffic controllers, you don't want them stressed out more about their money. They're already stressed out enough. They don't need more stress. They need less stress. Sarkozy's going to walk free. A female TikTok star was kidnapped and publicly executed by Al-Qaeda jihadists in Mali. So now Mali's out of control. Timbuktu, Sudan's out of control. Several other nations in Africa have had coups. There's been, I think, 6 or 7 different coups. So Africa's in complete revolt at this point, and has been for years, and is still in revolt. Some of the wars that have been going on in these countries have been going on for 12 or 13 years, according to this. News of her death has shocked the country, which is ruled by a military junta that is struggling to contain the jihadist insurgency that's gripped this country since 2012. So Obama could have done something. We had troops in Africa under Obama, but did they ever address these problems? No, not really. Not that I can remember. So that's really where we are. Apparently the J6 pipe bomber has been identified as a United States Capitol police officer who planted both the bombs, or at least one of them. And that was done by a program, an algorithm that apparently watches your walk. So I don't see, that's probably not going to hold up in a court of law because you don't have her face there. And if she has a probable alibi, if she has an alibi that can be proved, then you're really in trouble in a court of law trying to prove that she was the one that planted those alleged pipe bombs, which weren't really a pipe bomb because it was planted 16 hours ahead of time with an hour timer. They didn't even try to make it look like a digital timer so it would look somewhat realistic. They used like an egg timer, kind of, the old kitchen timer that just has 1 hour. That timer. Which means you can't plant an hour timer bomb 16 hours ahead of time. It's going to go off too soon. So this was obviously some really stupid thing that they got caught doing to try to make it look like somebody planted a bomb, but there really was no bomb. Trump pardons Giuliani and Powell and Chesebro and dozens more. Democrats finally cave in on the shutdown. The government shutdown is over for at least now. The can has been kicked down the road till sometime in January, the end of January. Sarkozy's walking free as he files his appeal in his case. J6 pipe bomber has been identified allegedly as a former U.S. has been identified as a former U.S. Capitol police officer named Shauni Rae Kerkhoff. So we'll see if that's true or not. I appreciate you. We'll keep our eyes on New York and what's going on there. I hope you're doing well, working out stretching, staying in your center space. We're going to continue to follow the events as they happen and then report on what we think is going on when we don't know all the information, right? So I hope you're doing well, working out stretching, staying in your center space. Using the I am attribution each day if you choose to simply say I am and something positive about yourself. You can speak your reality into existence. I think that's what we need to start doing. We need to collectively speak our reality into existence that talks about replacing these people and removing them, right? Removing the people who have been lying to us over our whole lifetimes, who have been poisoning us via food, via vaccine, via chemtrails and pollution and other. And to demand a new way forward, a new government of the people, for the people, by the people, right? And that's not what we've had. We've had a government of the corporation that's been managing us as if we were assets of that corporation instead of human beings. So friends, I hope you're well, working out, stretching, staying in your center space. This is your friend in New York, Ash, NPNP News, signing off for now.